Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
Attention, if you are a frustrated man who feels like he is not getting the results he wants in his life, health, wealth, relationships, and personal growth, then I've got a powerful free video training for you to help you become a strong, grounded man so you can unlock unlimited power in your life, business, and relationships. Go to kfmconfidence.com to get instant access to this training. Again, that's kfmconfidence.com. If you want a Cliff Notes version of the best material that I've learned after 300 interviews on this podcast about being a stronger, more powerful man, then it's all here at kfmconfidence.com. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Alicia Smith. She is the author of Common Stones, a glimpse into several different worlds in an effort to become more acquainted with our own. Alicia, happy to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Andrew.
All right, Alicia. And so we start off every show with a favorite success quote or some sort of saying that the guest has lived by. So share with us what you got and what does that mean to you?
One, the past couple of years that I really loved is every no gets me closer to my yes. And they say it comes from Mark Cuban, who I believe is on the Shark show. Yeah, Shark Tank. But actually, okay. I think it originated with Robert D. Smith.
Okay.
And basically what it means to me, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to, is, you know, there's so many things being a writer myself where you're applying to publishing companies to publish your book or to other authors or reviewers to get to review your book. And there's a lot of no's along the way. There's a lot of no's in all of our endeavors. So I always tried to tell myself, okay, that's okay. I got another no, but you know, it's going to get me closer to my yes.
How many no's until you got your book together here, until the publisher, all that?
Wow. There's a lot. In every step, there's a lot. I mean, probably a dozen, at least a dozen.
Yeah.
And there, you know, and there's a lot of different stages along the way. So at least a dozen, I'd say.
And not only do you have these no's from the publisher, but you probably have some internal no's also that you have to deal with. Yourself telling you, whoa, no, should I do this? Can I get this done? There's so much going on. How did you overcome some of those challenges?
Oh gosh, there's dozens and dozens of those no's. Honestly, that was probably one of my biggest setbacks was fear. And I loathe fear. It's like a cancer to me. I can't stand it. And one of the things I've been trying to live by lately is I put this quote on one of my chalkboards in the house, and just to say, control your fear. Don't let your fear control you. And that's what I always looked at. So whenever I felt that no inside telling me, no, go back, you're not ready for this, this isn't ready, yada, 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 I would look at that and think, no, I've got this. I can control this. Let's keep going.
And did you have full support from family and social circle of, were you getting no's from the people around you closest to you?
Ironically, no, there weren't a lot of no's. There was a lot of perplexity. I kind of walked away from my full-time job for this. I connect to you a lot, Andrew, as I read about you online and got to know you. I was a full-time in consulting world, and I literally had this idea for this book, woke me up in the middle of the night, as cliche as it sounds, and knew I had to walk away from what was secure in order to pursue this greatness that I had in my mind to help others. So that was questioned. But otherwise, I had great support from my family and friends.
How long was that going on for? So you had the dream, or you woke up and you made the decision right then and there, or was that just the beginning of the journey? That was the call to adventure?
That was the beginning. That was absolutely the beginning. I knew it had to be done at that point. There was no running from this idea. And so, I just took the first step. I approached my employer and said, I'm leaving. And this is what I'm leaving to pursue, which probably got a big chuckle, but he's very supportive in and of itself. So he was wonderful. And actually, they kind of convinced me to stay on part-time. So I did that while pursuing the book. It kind of spewed from there. I invested myself. I love to learn. I love to chase knowledge and wisdom. And I jumped into classes, publishing classes, media classes, everything I could to get my feet wet. I've done a lot of writing in my life, but nothing along the lines of nonfiction work. So I studied a lot and basically planned my steps so that, I could feel at least a little bit of firmness in my footing.
Yeah. Yeah. And what was it for you in finding your purpose? Like, what came together here that led you to find your purpose with this book and then also sharing this whole message?
Sure. So, 2007, my family and I discovered that my father had brain cancer. And not only did he have this horrific disease, it was the worst possible tumor possible. It was a glioblastoma, which is the deadliest of brain cancers in adults. Stage 4, it was already a fourth of the size of his brain. And while I finished my graduate degree, I traveled home every weekend to be with my family and help take care of my father for approximately a year before we lost him. And it was the most painful thing to watch this brutal disease just take hold of a man that, you had looked up to your entire life and was more thoughtful and giving than anyone you'd ever met. So I had this in me, this pain and this anger, a lot of anger, and struggled for years, So I finally literally woke up in the middle of the night one night and thought, I cannot do this alone. It just hit me. This is ridiculous. I was misguided to tell myself I was alone. There are other people out there with stories that can change people's lives just by sharing them, the wisdom. How did you get through it? Just tell me. That's really what I needed. Just tell me how you did it. Reaffirm my faith. I was losing faith. And so I knew this is what I had to do. And so my next steps were, okay, let's put more time towards this. Let's walk away from my full-time job and let's pursue anyone that will talk to me that had been through, a story of survival, just so I could just, feed off of their thoughts and learn how they had gotten through it step by step. And that's what I did.
I appreciate and respect your vulnerability here and sharing such a tragic story that's so close to you. And what were some of the lessons that you took away that helped you get through such a difficult time?
Honestly, if I had to pick top 3, there were many, many, but if I had to pick the top 3, I guess I would start with success is in our decisions, not in our conclusions. I feel like so often in our lives, we're looking for that end goal. And if we don't reach that end goal, we discredit ourselves or we get down and we fall out. And that's when we, fall away from our goals and our dreams and what motivates us. And really, I learned that just choosing the honorable decisions, that is what success is. Like it's accomplished by your decisions and your movements in life, not so much by the end result of them. But really, if we choose positivity, if we choose hard work and going that extra mile, you've already won. It doesn't really matter about the end of that outcome. And really, if you choose those things anyway, you're on the right path. To be honest, we could admit that. But just by doing that, not only does it get us on the right path, but we've already won by doing that. And that was a really big one to me.
Yeah, that's huge. And I could see that giving a lot of hope and just pushing someone out of a difficult time. Now they keep doing this and they're feeling good. And this happens to a lot of us. But what happens when you hit that plateau and you start feeling like you're falling backward and you feel like you're kind of going back to where you started and it's becoming just as difficult, if not more at this time. What would you share to do in this situation?
Oh, yeah. So here's the 2, and that kind of plays into my other 2, which is great that you mentioned that, Andrew. The first I would say is to be relentless. And I learned this from one of the women in the book. And, it's funny how life happens. We go through life and, we think we got over this massive hurdle and everything's going to be downhill from then, but really it's not. Our challenges are very consistent, and especially the one like you're talking about, like the revolving door that doesn't seem to end. And really, this summer, for example, I went through a massive hurdle with my husband and us trying to adopt. And, we went through a really big hurdle, and a child was placed with us. And, 8 days later, the mother changed her mind and decided to parent the birth mother. And we had truly felt like, we had lost our daughter. And that was a huge thing to me. And, once again, I felt, oh my goodness, like again, I'm being pushed back. Again, I'm being pushed down. When is this going to end? It was kind of that victim mentality. And as that continues to come, like you're saying, Andrew, I repeated to myself, as I learned from one of the women in the book, be relentless. Don't fixate on what's happening and the fact that you keep getting pushed down. Just be relentless. And ironically, the more I tell myself to do that, no matter what I'm doing, I get there. And as crazy as that sounds, like the waves keep coming in life. That's another big, big take home here. Like I always say, embrace the waves, because rough waters, they challenge us. I feel like with every hit that we take from them, they teach us persistence and they teach us patience and they cultivate strength. The waves do this. The challenges do this, no matter what we're striving for. And in essence, they really improve upon the people we are, right? With every hit, they're they're chiseling out a little bit more of that stone of our block that we're originally born with. And it's crafting that within us. But with every hit, especially I can speak for myself this summer, this woman reminded me that I need to be relentless, because those waves are not going to stop coming, but we need to embrace them and just tell ourselves to keep going.
Is that life, it's full of waves? They're not going to stop?
Absolutely.
And what do you do for yourself when you're constantly pushing and pushing and pushing? What about yourself? Do you ever feel like you're losing, like you're constantly fighting, and maybe I have to take off the armor for a day or so and stop fighting? Because if we keep fighting, it can lead to we can lose ourselves in that war.
Absolutely. And this is where faith came in to this whole journey within me. And in the beginning, that's where I was. This summer, that's where I was. I was knocked down hard. And, I needed someone to tell me that there was validity in having faith in myself, and having faith in God, that things would pull through. And as cliche as that sounds, in those moments that I was knocked down, where all of these people were knocked down, that is what picked us up. Allowing ourselves to be in pain, allowing ourselves to be angry and have our doubts and be honest about those doubts, but also relying on God to be the one to pick us up. Because even when it's silent, I really honestly believe and all of these stories have shown me, if we really invest ourselves in a relationship with God and investing ourselves into that faith, He speaks to us in the silence, and we need to allow ourselves to hit the ground. We need to allow ourselves to rely on Him instead of ourselves.
I see. And what would you say are some of the most common mistakes that people make when they're going through a difficult trial or tribulation, something very challenging that most people make?
Yeah. Honestly, I think a lot of it is letting fear take control. I think that's a huge thing. I do believe it's a cancer in and of itself to us. It holds us back from our biggest accomplishments. And, whenever anyone asks me what do you recommend if, they're struggling in some type of area with work, with personal, with anything, I like to say, what are you afraid of the most? Because usually that is what we should run toward. Whatever endeavor we're scared of attacking, usually that's what's going to, change our lives the most if we attack those. So that's one of them. Uh-huh. Another thing I would say is the need for perfection. Honestly, I think, and I can speak for this too, the need for perfection. Perfection is really just a mirage. It really doesn't even exist the majority of the time. And we continually pursue something that's not there instead of just working our hardest at something and just focusing on that instead of focusing on something that may never exist. Those are two big things.
Yeah. Any others?
Yeah, there's a few others I would think of off the top of my head. Probably jealousy and envy. I feel like social media and, our fixation on that.
You're going through a tough time and you're looking at other people just always on vacation or always getting a promotion. And it's tough when you're in that place of you're in the pit.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. You're just we're comparing ourselves and then you kind of become complacent in that envy, and again, it's maybe that victim mentality, and it's really hard to pull ourselves out of that. So I think that's a really big one, fixating on that.
What do you mean complacent in that envy? I think that's a big point.
Sometimes it's easier to sit and feel bad for ourselves sometimes than it is to be relentless and put in that extra effort every day. to become what we want to achieve for ourselves, not what we're seeing on social media or what we're seeing online. But, it's easier just to sit there sometimes and, kind of feel bad for ourselves instead of get up with vigor the next morning and go after it. Definitely. I can speak for that too. So that's what I mean. I think we can become complacent and seeing things like that online and things that are happening in the world that we would like to strive for as well, but just haven't been coming to us. So that can happen.
Yeah. What would you say are some daily habits that would make someone more successful at getting through that pit, that dark place, overcoming that challenge? I think in the daily habits, we can really get some progress.
Sure. Honestly, this is a big one for me. And if we can speak to this first, I always say, if you could just present the challenge to yourself, if anyone could, and, wake up 5 or 10 minutes early in the day, get your coffee, get your favorite energy drink, whatever that may be, and sit and spend time with God. And if you're not comfortable with that, if prayer or studying his word isn't your thing, meditating or doing yoga and just really centering yourself and getting ready for the day in that sense, taking time for yourself. I really believe that makes a huge change. And I actually really would urge anyone to kind of start doing that and keep a journal, a log, and note how your day goes. What was accomplished? What did you feel? Good and bad. And then also note the days that you didn't and compare it. And I really honestly believe that gives some hard evidence as to what that time, how it's so sacred and how that time of being still can really, really help you achieve things. And then also, on a more concrete level, just as a light thing, I love to watch TED Talks. So you can, obviously they go to certain cities, you can see them live, or you can just watch them online. So a lot of knowledgeable individuals give a 30-minute speech on different aspects, different topics, and they're so inspiring to me. I usually walk away with some type of new creative outlook or perspective. And there's so many different things that they talk about, so many different topics that you can find anything you're interested in. And really, when I'm feeling that lag in the middle of the day, I literally do, I pop on a TED Talk and I listen to something new that I never knew before. And it helps me just develop myself and get me inspired for the rest of the day.
Yeah, I like that. So I'm getting to start off the day with meditation, or if it's through a religious practice, but really getting centered to start off the day. I think the key with that is consistency. I think, obviously it's a daily habit, but meditate, we could try, nothing happened, and then just give up on it. But I think everyone can find their own way of meditation. It doesn't necessarily have to look like you're sitting down and, legs crossed and you have candles lit, and it could be your own thing. I've heard of people saying they just go for a nice walk in a nice place and
bike ride.
Exactly. You can meditate through something that you enjoy, but just getting centered before you dive in your day. And journaling, I think, is huge. I think it's the same thing where if we're consistent with it, I think it would just speed up the process of getting through that difficult time, because we really get our thoughts out of our mind and onto paper, and that's where they can be, so that we could see them and we could see that growth over time. And then obviously I think TED Talks are amazing, just personal growth, personal development to continuously grow. I think it's a powerful way to just good content to come into your ears, just like this podcast on a regular basis. So that's really good. That's good. Now I'm curious with what is it like to talk about this challenge repeatedly? Because it's in the book, and then now you're on this podcast, and there's probably other media outlets that you'll continue to be on. What is it like to have to share that story again?
Are you speaking directly about my father?
Yes.
Is that what you're speaking about, Andrew? So that, honestly, it's a great question, because every time I do it, I heal a little bit more.
Yeah.
And that is one of the big take homes I actually speak with people about, is that one of the things that gets me out of bed in the morning is, an excitement to see or achieve greatness. It definitely doesn't have to be mine. I revel in when I see others, people that I love, people that I don't even know, achieve greatness. So that gets me out of bed in the morning. And when I talk to people, I say a huge way that we can help others to achieve that in any way is to share our stories, just like you're asking all of your interviewees to do, right, Andrew?
Right.
We learn so much from other people.
Right.
So but in turn, when I tell the story, even in ways I never expect, every single time I heal a little bit more. So not only do others learn and develop from hearing what you've been through and your success and your wisdom, but you heal in and of itself. So, that's been huge for me.
That's great. And that's what I was looking for too, is to hear you say, and just for others, like it's a big takeaway to know that if you've gone through or are still actively going through something very challenging, which I believe we all are, that through sharing the story and the lessons, that you help others, of course, but you also help yourself through that process, through sharing, rather than holding all of that within you.
Right. Exactly.
Like holding there's so much
pain.
the pain. Mm-hmm. It's like, get it out. And you can also help. It's therapeutic. You can help others. I think especially for men, I think it can be difficult to want to share a challenging situation or a dark place that we're currently in or have gone through, because we might want to appear that we're strong and that everything's okay and that we're going to figure it out, when that's obviously true. But there is, I believe, a danger to that. And there's a big gift in being able to open up and be vulnerable and share what's really going on with yourself.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. It is a gift. It's a gift to everyone experiencing it. And it continues to be, like, not only that first time, and it continues to get easier as well. It's funny how you pull out your own nuggets of lessons as you're actually speaking, just telling the facts. It's funny how, those reveal themselves as you do.
Really good. So action item for some of the guys listening, or everyone listening, really is to, why not share when someone asks you, hey, how are you doing today? What's going on? Instead of the default response of everything's good, how are you? And throwing it back to them. Why not open up a little bit and maybe share a little bit about your world and what's going on? Especially those closest to you. Absolutely, those closest to you.
Definitely. And, and I, like a trigger too, is if someone asks you something and you have something to say, you can relate to that on a personal level, and you pause because you're not sure, because that's your, innateness. That is typical of ourselves to hold back, especially when it's something personal. So we naturally do that. But I think that's also a trigger, like a flag to ourselves. Okay, maybe this is the moment, maybe this is the moment I should at least tiptoe into this and see how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, really good activity. And I'm looking forward to hearing what happens there for you guys. And Alicia, let's dive now into the knowledge round. I'm just going to ask you a few more rapid fire questions in this episode. Are you ready?
Sure. Yeah.
Have you ever felt like you weren't the strong, grounded man that you know you're capable of becoming? Like there's something more inside of you, but you don't know how to get it out. Me too. Years ago, I was broke, sleeping on my brother's couch, and just got out of a serious breakup that left me on the floor for months. Now, I have a multiple six-figure business. I'm in the best shape of my life, have an abundant dating life, and live on the beach here in San Diego. I want you to break through too and create the life that you want. And because people kept asking me so many questions, I've created this free video training series on becoming a strong, grounded man so that you can have more freedom, love, and connection in your life. I'll also teach you how to build real backbone to boost your masculinity as a man so that you can have more respect, power, and confidence personally and professionally. Simply go to kfmconfidence.com to get this training. Again, that's kfmconfidence.com. Also, I share the number one conversation that your father never had with you about women. That will be a major wake-up call for 90% of you and will improve the quality of your relationships forever. Go to kfmconfidence.com to get this free training today.
Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime.
First question I have for you is, what advice would you give to someone who's feeling really lost or unsure of their purpose?
This is one I touched on earlier. I already said this, but I really believe that whenever someone says something like that to me, that they're unsure of their purpose, they don't know, what direction they're headed in. I ask them, what have they wanted to do that scares them the most, and then I tell them to go after it without a doubt, because it will change their life. This book, me writing this book, it was the scariest thing in the world for me, but it has been the best thing that I ever did. And that's just proof to me. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, really good. What do you think is holding most men back from becoming their strongest selves?
Again, I think fear is huge. I think fear of failure, fear of no, maybe anger. I think a lot of times when we get knocked down, we're told we're not enough or, something along those lines. I think, that dealing with that feeling and overcoming that hurdle it can be massive. So I think, focusing in on those two things, that can really hold us back.
Got it. And what would you say are 3 influential books that have helped you on your journey?
I guess my first that I always remember is Night by Elie Wiesel, I believe, who passed away this summer, sadly. Story of the Holocaust and that experience. And literally, if I'm going through a really, really difficult struggle in my life, I'm no exaggeration, I picture those scenes that I read in that book. And it was years ago that I read it, but I picture those scenes and I tell myself, if that can be done, if, that courage and perseverance that those men and women had, that can be done, I can get through this moment. I mean, it was so inspirational to me. Another one would be Crazy Love by Francis Chan. He's an amazing man. He kind of transforms the typical belief in God and worshiping God in the world and what we kind of fall into like an authentic faith and a relationship with God. So it was a really awesome book. And I think, the third one, I just finished The War of Art.
Oh, Stephen Pressfield, yeah.
Yeah, which was amazing. It walks through the artist's life, whether it be, a painter, a writer, an entrepreneur, and just talks about resistance and, professionals versus amateurs and our muses and the reason we do what we do. I mean, it's just a really, really cool, inspirational book that you can relate to. And I think that's really what I liked about it.
The book Night. That was, I believe, the first book that I read in school that I actually read, wanted to read. I remember you get assigned these books and you just have to read them and you don't really read them. Right. Or at least I didn't really read them. But I remember this book, Night. I remember I read that book. They gave it to us and I remember I read it on my own from front to cover within that first week. And it was the first book I ever read on my own. But why I think it's such a great book for those you talked about, it's the story of the Holocaust. And I think it really gives you perspective because you said you read it when you're going through a tough time and we're all going through tough times. I don't have to, he's not. We're all human. That means we're all going through some sort of challenge in our lives. But this book and any book of, the Holocaust I can't really think of anything worse than that, but it gives you perspective on your problem.
Exactly.
Because that is a unspeakable problem.
Right. Perspective and gratitude.
Yes. And it's
for what we have.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's okay. So this is my problem here. All right.
Yeah.
And now, so I can do this is how I feel. Another book similar is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And I think those are some great books for just some really good perspective on your current situation. And they all give you great lessons inside.
I've heard of that one, actually. That's on my reading list.
Yeah.
So I'm going to check that soon.
I would highly recommend Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. It's one of the most powerful books I've ever read. And I've read quite a bit here. So now, Alicia, this is more of a scenario. So imagine you had 60 seconds with your 25-year-old self. If you can envision where she's at personally, professionally, financially, relationships even, what would you tell her to do? If you could go talk to her now, and what would you tell her not to do?
So in that part of my life, I think things were good. Things were definitely looking up. Everything was positive and not at all to focus on the negative. But I would honestly say to her, a really tough decade is coming. And, there's going to be a lot of ups, but there's going to be some really hard downs. And I think what I would tell her is the greatest moments come from the biggest obstacles, and don't sit on the lessons. Don't sit on them. Whatever you take from your obstacles, write them down, share them, and basically make them count. Make them count for something. Don't just let them be, something you got over. Make them count. I wish I'm starting to do that more in my 30s, and I wish I would have done that prior to now.
Yeah, I think that's huge. What would you say would be your philosophy for overcoming significant hardship?
Honestly, this is a personal thing, but it would really just go back to centering myself again with God. I really believe that is the point of it all. I believe that, like you said, if that's not your avenue, meditating, be still, whatever you need to do. Me personally, my philosophy is seeking his voice. So I just do that in the stillness, especially when I'm down. But other than that, it's so easy to focus on, especially for me personally, I can speak to, it's so easy for me to constantly be focusing on my goals. I'm kind of a go-getter. I like to have accomplishment in my days and progression, and it's so easy to do that. And I fall into that constantly, but I try to kind of flip that philosophy on its head and instead be progressive in the personal things of life. So I'll make lists on personal moments that I want to have kind of like season by season throughout the year, and things I want to do with my family and my friends. And, so instead of focusing on that to-do list, that's work and, accomplish this Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, instead, I do it in a personal manner. And I kind of flipped that into a poster. I designed a poster and cards, and it combines all the simple things in life that they're free to us and they bring such joy, but we forget we have them in our back pocket. So whenever I'm focusing too much on the work aspect of life and achievement, I just let my hand fall on one of those simple things. And I just focus on that and make that my philosophy instead. Make a to-do list of moments to enjoy with the ones we love.
I like that. And what would you say is exciting you today? What's getting you out of bed in the morning in this year?
Honestly, as I shared earlier, our hardship with adoption this summer, we were blessed with another opportunity to adopt a perfect, amazing little boy. And he was born 6 weeks ago. And my husband and I are just obsessed over him. So we have a brand new little boy and he gets me out of bed. He really does right now. It's hard to focus on anything else because there's such joy in that love that we have for him. But I guess, that's personally, that's what gets me out of bed and just grinning from ear to ear. But, in terms of the daily goals and work life and things like that, I think what gets me out of bed, especially in what I do, seeking other stories to share wisdom with others in book format and things like that. I think of the person that is, at home, is alone, paralyzed by fear, just scared, not knowing what to do next, not having the motivation or the inspiration to do next. And I think about them and how I can create some type of vehicle of information to help them and to reach them and to make them feel not alone. I think that's my goal in everything I write. And that's what gets me out of bed.
Yeah, Alicia, I love the work that you're doing, and congratulations on the new boy. That's I could tell just from the tone of your voice how excited and happy you are about that. Yeah. That's incredible. For all the listeners, you can follow up with Alicia. I think getting her book, go to Amazon, type in Alicia M. Smith, and Common Stones is the book, or simply type in Common Stones. Let me check. And yeah, it pops up number 1. You can also Google her name. It also seems to pop up. And would you like to plug yourself for your home? Do you have a website address that you can share with us?
Sure. Yeah. It's authoraliciasmith.com. Traditional spelling, Alicia Smith, Alicia. And yeah, there's a lot of different social media modes and a mailing list and all the good stuff to get in contact.
Fantastic. Alicia, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story, being vulnerable, and giving us your lessons here. It's been really great having you on.
Thanks, Andrew. Great to be here.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and millions of downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement, and we're just getting started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a helpful review in iTunes because it really helps the podcast grow so we can impact even more men in the world who need this. Guys, this is all about living with purpose, where every day you only do things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. And always remember, love the life you have while creating the life of your dreams. Go to kfmfree.com to get a surprise bonus I've made for my listeners. Again, that's kfmfree.com for something that's changed my life, and I'm offering it to you for free. Also, check out my Amazon best-selling books that I've written for you to help you crush life at kfmauthor.com. Again, that's kfmauthor.com to see all the books I've created to help you break through in life. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, founder of knowledgeformen.com, and I'll see you in the next episode.